The American bison, often mistakenly called the buffalo, is a living force of nature that once blanketed North America. They are the largest terrestrial mammal on the continent. A fully grown male can stand up to 6 feet tall at the shoulder and carry up to 2,800 pounds of mass. Despite that extreme bulk, they are astonishingly agile. A bison can reach running speeds of 45 miles per hour and clear a 6-foot obstacle from a standing jump. They are built specifically to endure extreme cold. Their deep, dark brown winter coat contains 10 times more hair per square inch than domestic cattle, trapping body heat so efficiently that falling snow can sit on their backs without melting. When the grasslands are buried in winter snow, they use their heavily muscled necks and thick skulls as biological snowplows, sweeping the ground clear to reach the vegetation underneath. That combination of sheer physical power and specialized cold weather adaptation allowed them to dominate the harshest environments on the continent. To sustain that mass, a bison eats up to 2% of its body weight daily, keeping herds constantly on the move to find fresh grazing. All that consumption produces an immense ecological byproduct. On average, a single bison leaves behind 12 quarts of dung and gallons of urine daily. This waste acts as a hyper-efficient natural fertilizer, injecting high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus straight back into the nutrient-starved soil. As they travel, they physically reshape the terrain. By rolling in the dirt, they create massive depressions called wallows. When it rains, these wallows hold water, creating microhabitats that sustain countless other prairie species. In the spring, the herds birth their rusty-colored red dog calves in tight synchronization. To survive predators and keep up with the nomadic herd, a newborn calf must be on its feet and walking within an hour of birth. The health of the temperate grasslands, the most endangered ecosystem on Earth, relies entirely on the continuous biological engine of the bison. This map shows the historical boundaries of the Great Bison Belt. At their peak, these herds roamed a continuous stretch of rich grassland from Alaska down to the Gulf of Mexico, and from the Atlantic seaboard into Nevada. Within those borders, the population density was staggering. Before European settlement, an estimated 60 to 70 million bison populated this territory. For the indigenous peoples of the plains, the animal held deep spiritual significance. Many tribes revered them as the first people, viewing their lives as completely intertwined with the herds. The practical reliance was total. Native Americans utilized the bison for more than 150 specific purposes, deriving their primary food source, clothing, shelter, tools, and ceremonial objects from a single animal. The human and bison existence on the Great Plains was tightly woven together for millennia. For the tribes that lived alongside them, the concept of the animal going extinct did not even exist in their worldview. Following the Civil War, European settlers pushed westward in mass numbers, eager to convert the open plains into farmland. This expansion immediately sparked fierce, bloody clashes with the Native American tribes over the land. To gain the upper hand, the U.S. government and professional hunters shifted their strategy away from direct combat and began targeting the bison herds directly. The logic was brutal and highly efficient. By eradicating the primary resource of the Plains Indians, the government could starve the tribes into submission and force them onto reservations without having to fight them in the field. The bison's physical advantages meant nothing against this tactic. A speed of 45 miles per hour could not outrun a barrage of bullets. This graph shows the catastrophic impact of that campaign. The population collapsed from 60 million animals down to just 541 individuals in the United States by 1889. The near extinction of the bison was a deliberate man-made apocalypse, calculated to erase an ancient way of life and clear the plains for a new nation. By the early 1900s, the mindset in America began to shift. Early conservationists and ranchers looked out at the empty plains and realized the severe ecological damage the slaughter had caused. The species was at its absolute lowest point. The only free-roaming wild bison left in the country was a tiny, isolated herd of roughly 25 animals hiding in the high altitudes of Yellowstone National Park. Desperate to save the species, ranchers gathered the scattered remnants of the plains herds, placing them into enclosed, heavily fenced breeding programs. In an attempt to produce a hardier animal for agriculture, some of these ranchers crossbred the surviving bison with domestic cattle, creating a hybrid known as beefalo. The crossbreeding failed to produce useful agricultural traits, but it successfully corrupted the wild genome. The hidden legacy of cattle DNA became permanently embedded within many of the herds that survived the bottleneck, pulling the bison back from the brink of physical extinction with a massive achievement. But modern conservationists are now fighting to save the true wild genetics of the animal. This genetic diagram illustrates the modern strategy led by groups like the National Wildlife Federation. By running extensive DNA testing on existing herds, they are identifying and culling the residual cattle genetics. While total bison numbers have grown over the last century, this genetic purification reveals the actual rarity of the animal. Today, there are only roughly 31,000 genetically pure wild plains and wood bison on the continent. True wild bison were never meant to be confined. They retain an aggressive, untamable temperament and possess enough physical force to easily destroy modern fencing. Conservationists are now taking these pure, genetically intact herds and returning them to protected spaces like Badlands National Park, allowing them to freely roam and reignite the dormant ecological cycles of the prairie. The survival and continuing restoration of the American bison proves the deep resilience of the wild. They remain an enduring fixture of the plains, a giant too powerful and too essential to ever be fully erased.